So in one of my previous videos I received a comment that said, "You got to the part about validation from pretty girls feeling good and I lost all ability to relate to the conversation. Is that a thing? My brain's response to that is to go into a scammer is fishing for information mode, which might imply deeper issues on my part, but like, do people actually feel happy on a gut level just because someone's nice to them? Do brains really work that way? That sounds unhelpful." And so I have to explain this because I think it is important to explain this. And I also have to warn that this explanation might not sound good to a lot of people, but this is how I used to view the world, and this is also how many young men view the world. So basically, when I was in middle and high school, I used to view pretty girls as those like angelic creatures. Yes, I was putting them on a pedestal basically. And I know some people will say it's like kind of sexist to view them as some creatures, angelic creatures rather than people, but this is how I used to view pretty girls, and I know this is how many young men view pretty girls. And so when I started receiving attention from those angelic creatures in middle school and in high school, when those pretty girls were saying hi to me and initiating conversations with me and stuff, I confused that with them liking me because of my autism. Like, when you have autism, you usually confuse people being nice to you and being polite to you with people liking you. And so because those pretty girls were being nice to me and because I am autistic, I thought that those pretty girls liked me. And I was like, oh my god, those angelic creatures love me. Those angelic creatures are giving me validation. I'm receiving validation from them. And so I felt like some of their greatness, some of their angelicness rubbed off on me.
If I could just touch the hem of his pocket protector, then maybe some of his greatness would rub off on me.
And so I felt so proud of myself when I was receiving attention from those angelic creatures, those mythical creatures or whatever. So I felt so good about myself, and I felt like an omnipotent god when I received attention from them. And when I thought that girls liked me, I thought that I had some power over them. I thought that those pretty girls were like laying in bed and daydreaming about me every day. And so those like angelic creatures, imagine, they daydream about me. And so I felt all of a sudden so amazing about myself, and I felt like this omnipotent god. I felt like this mighty king. And so feeling like this mighty king and this omnipotent god, it made me so happy. I was like, for the first time, really proud of myself. I was really happy with who I was. This was like the first time in my life that I remember feeling like genuinely happy in the moment. And so then when people eventually told me, you need to stop putting girls on a pedestal, you need to view them as human beings, not as some mythical or angelic creatures. You need to stop basing your happiness off of validation of pretty girls. That is simp behavior, that is beta male behavior. When people told me that, I felt like those people brutally took away that happiness from me. Because like I said, this was the first time that I felt genuine happiness, like in the moment, only for people to brutally take that away from me. And so, if you are watching this and you can relate to this because you are probably like in a situation where you feel the need to receive validation from pretty girls as a young man, simply because that is what makes you happy, right? Receiving attention from those angelic creatures makes you happy, right? It makes you feel like this omnipotent god. And so, if you are in that situation like my younger self, like, I don't want to take away your happiness the same way everyone took my happiness away from me. And so I'm not just gonna sit here and say the same things that everyone else says. I'm not gonna be like, oh, that is wrong! You need to stop putting girls on a pedestal. You need to stop viewing girls as anything other than human beings. You need to stop basing your happiness off of validation from pretty girls. You need to stop doing this, stop doing that. I'm not gonna say that. Like, you can do whatever you want. We have a free will, and we are entitled to happiness. We can do whatever we want. However, I now realize that when I was feeling this happiness, it doesn't mean that the pretty girls were feeling that happiness at the same time. Because, like, try to think of this from the perspective of pretty girls. Think of it, imagine you were a pretty girl and you try to just be polite to some random young man, and then all of a sudden that young man, because he is autistic, he thinks that you love him and that you are fantasizing about him and whatever, and all of a sudden that man just like starts like craving you for validation, and all of a sudden you feel responsible for his happiness and his validation. And that's probably like, you already have a busy life yourself. You don't want to have more responsibility in your life. You don't want to be responsible for some random dude's happiness, especially if that dude is a neckbeard who has a horrible sense of style, because that was my younger self. Here is how my younger self looked. And you might be saying, but I'm not a neckbeard. I don't have a poor sense of style. I am attractive. I am this women's dream boyfriend material, because that is what I thought. I thought that it was a good thing that I was like putting girls on a pedestal or whatever, because I viewed myself on like a pedestal as well. Well, once that their validation like rubbed off on me, then I started feeling like this almighty king, and then I started putting myself on a pedestal. So I did not see a problem with putting girls on a pedestal, because I put myself on a pedestal as well. And so when I was like showering girls with compliments and stuff, and having this like simpy behavior which I had in middle school, I thought that I was doing those girls a favor, because I thought that I was this like white knight giving them compliments. Like, imagine you as a dude, if you received this validation and compliments from a pretty girl, you probably would be happy. And so I thought the same way that the pretty girls must be happy when they received this like simpy behavior from me. But the problem is that I now realize I was not some white knight. Once again, I looked like this. Does this look like a fucking white knight to you? I'm sorry, there's some garbage truck out there making loud noises. But anyways, so my purpose, I want to make it clear that my purpose with this content, with videos like this, as well as like my community, the safe space, which you can find in the description, like the purpose of all of this is to help young men who are in a similar situation to like my younger self, where they feel happy from receiving validation from pretty girls, who are autistic and therefore have a lot of autistic traits and a lot of problems that come with autism. For example, not knowing whether a pretty girl is just being polite to them or whether she actually likes them, and to basically help young men who feel insecure about their autism to accept their weaknesses and embrace their weaknesses, and also accept and embrace their strengths. Basically, young men who are insecure about their autism. I preach better mental health and to be a better person as an autistic young man. And when I reveal like my past backstories, that I viewed women as some angelic creatures, like I do not condone or preach this like worldview that girls are some angelic creatures and when they give you attention that you feel like an almighty king. But I am describing all this because this is how I used to view the world, and I know this is how many other young men view the world, because otherwise we would not have all this self-improvement advice that says like, hey, don't put girls on a pedestal, focus on yourself, girls are a distraction, don't do it for girls, do it for yourself. Like, why do we need to hear this advice? Because men are simps. Not only me, like my past self, but there are many young men that actually are in a similar situation that I was in. Maybe not the one who wrote this comment. Maybe he cannot relate to like my situation, but I know there are some young men out there that can relate to this, and hopefully I can reach out to them with my content. And I also don't want to say like, oh, you need to stop doing this, because when people told me that I need to stop doing X, Y, and Z, I got angry because doing those things made me happy. Like when people told me that I need to stop obsessing over pretty girls, that made me angry because obsessing over pretty girls, like I was doing that for a reason. I was doing that because that made me happy, that made me feel like an almighty king, and I wanted to feel like this almighty king. I wanted to feel this happiness. And so what I preach instead is, hey, you can feel like an almighty king. Here, I can teach you how you can feel like an almighty king without having to put the responsibility of your happiness in the hands of pretty girls. You can feel all this like amazing happiness about yourself in more healthy ways. Because I managed to do that, and if I managed to do that, so can you. And so I hope my message was more clear this time.